Good day, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the HJC podcast. I'm Ryan, your Saturday writer, and joining me today are Monday's writer, Sean. How's it going, Sean?
Doing great, a little cold, but we're doing all right.
That's to be expected for December. Friday's writer, TC. How's it going?
Pretty good. I'm sitting here in Georgia with 6 inches outside my door.
And Steve, Sunday's writer.
What's going on, everybody?
And friend of the show, Brendan. How's it going, Brendan?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Ryan?
Excellent, excellent. Sounds like you guys are colder than I am. It is cold here, but no snow. No snow, eh? And just a reminder that this episode of the HJC podcast is powered by HockeyJerseyConcepts.com. You can find this episode and other episodes on the blog, also on the YouTube channel. And today we're talking about the worst Reebok Edge jerseys. Last week we talked about the best Reebok Edge jerseys. Naturally, this week's going to be about the worst Reebok Edge jerseys. We got to speculate on what not Russia's Olympic jerseys will look like now that Russia is banned from the 2018 Winter Olympics. We'll go around the league. We'll do throwback, throwdown, and of course, fake or authentic. Let's start off with the worst Reebok Edge jerseys. I've invited everyone in for this segment. Sean, TC, and Brendan. Steve's going to take a hiatus on this one because there are so many bad Edge jerseys, he says. So, Sean, why don't you start us off? We've all made a top 3 list. You guys have all made a top 3 list. Sean, start us off. The number 3 worst Reebok Edge jersey.
This takes a lot of thinking because there are a lot of jerseys in the Edge era, particularly the early Edge era, that are just very plain and boring. But most of these jerseys were corrected within a few years. One team that never corrected it was the Colorado Avalanche. And unfortunately, their 2007 to 15 jerseys were just that. You had the basic outline of what once was arguably the best jerseys the NHL had, and they turned them into very plain, boring, template-filled, piping-filled messes that were a shell of themselves. They didn't even update the logos until 2016. It's not much, but the real difference is when I look at that Yeti foot on, I just think, man, I could have a jersey with a mountain on the bottom of it.
It really was just a terribly disappointing jersey. And I don't know if Colorado management was ignorant or stubborn, maybe a little bit of both, but there was never a desire to change it until, of course, Adidas stepped in. TC, you're number 3 on this list.
My number 3 on this list is the Columbus Blue Jackets 2007 to end of the Edge era home set. It's just a like, I don't even mind the away that much because then you have the full length yoke. But on the home set, it's blue on blue with minimal piping and stars at the edge. It just looks like a practice jersey with really atrocious font on it. So that's why it takes my number 3 spot.
Interesting choice. Wouldn't necessarily be on my list, but definitely an interesting choice. Brendan, go ahead with your number 3.
Now, my original number 3 choice was Pittsburgh's, Ottawa, and Tampa Bay, all of their original Edge jerseys, but that was also on Ben's list, who couldn't join the podcast last minute. So I went with something else, and I'm going to stick with that something else because I'm sure we have all heard about the Penguins and so on jerseys enough. So my number 3, Nashville's original Edge set. Now, Sean and TC both think that it's too similar to the ones that they had before to be considered new. I disagree. It has its similarities, but I disagree because while the old one looked more like a product of its time, and while it still wasn't great, it looked okay. The updated version for Reebok Edge looked more like just another piece of their templated garbage. The white on the cuffs of the blue jersey is a lot more prominent and stands out in a really bad way with the way that they updated it instead of having the blue in between. The silver shoulder yokes, I mean, this is a problem with the original one, but the shiny fabric just looks really weird being as prominent as it is. And if you look at the white one, the color balance is way off considering that the gray and the silver and the white almost clash together whenever you're looking at it from a distance and not really paying attention. The only thing that stands out is the side panels that are hidden half the time, not to mention the piping and the awful logo that Nashville had until they updated it.
Yeah, that was a pretty terrible jersey. That one would be on my list, probably also at number 3. Sean, let's go to you for your number 2. This would be number 1 on my list, but go ahead and tell us what your number 2 is.
Well, I think TC and Brendan also have a slight affection for this jersey, as do a lot of the listeners, but the Turd Burger was a turd.
Yes, it was.
There is no getting around it. It is a terrible, misguided, weird jersey. I don't know where to begin on this one, honestly. There's about 4 shades of gray on it, between the numbers, piping, the cuffs on the arm, and the Buffalo logo itself. If you've ever seen one in person, you'll know what I mean when I say that the blue to yellow switch on the front and back is not natural. It's cut in the Edge template. It just sort of it gives you a silhouette. That's the best way I can describe it. Is it gives you figure, and hockey jerseys are not meant to give you figure. The numbers lack of white on the jersey is very distracting. It's something that you notice right away. I originally liked the script under the collar. I don't anymore. It looks very cheap. It looks like what you'd see in a league where they had to purchase the Reebok Edge jerseys and they have the Reebok underneath, so it doesn't look like it's just an NHL jersey with a logo on it. The only thing that's good about them is that that captains with the crossed swords underneath. But the thing about this jersey is this is going to be the flying V of the 2010s. It was so bad. People love it. And I think that everyone should get one for their collection as an example of what happens when you let Steve Ott design a jersey. This
is what happens when you can't have nice things. That might be the worst jersey ever in the history of ever. That would be number 1 on my list. TC, you're number 2 here. Maybe a jersey that some people wouldn't think about. Go ahead, tell us about this one.
Before I get to my number 2, I feel it only prudent to point out that all 3 of us participating in this own a Turd Burger. So there is something to be said for it's gonna, Don said, a nostalgia thing so bad that it's good. My number 2 is the 2009 All-Star Game jerseys. They're just kind of a mess. I think they were trying to emulate the Thrashers baby blue jersey with the contrasting down the one arm, but the striping just sort of swoops around the entirety of the body and then makes an awkward hem stripe that is sort of useless because it just blends into the breezers. So I just think it's a decent idea that was just executed horrifically.
And that was the All-Star Game in Montreal, but yeah, those jerseys were just a mess, an absolute mess. Brendan, your number 2 is also jerseys that would appear on my list.
I'm sure it would appear on many's list. It's the Dallas Stars script set. I don't want to say original Edge because one of their original Edge jerseys actually had a logo on it, which isn't great, but it's a little bit better just because it has a logo. Now, let's just start with the script since we're already talking about it. In theory, it can work sometimes. It works for college. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it works for them. And it would work for, let's say, a Winter Classic game. Rangers especially, considering that they've used this design, but it could work for anybody if done correctly. But the script just doesn't make much sense full-time in the NHL. The Rangers with the diagonal script are the only team that can pull that off, I think. Now, ignoring the script, as I'm sure you all know by now, one of my biggest gripes with the jersey is a lack of color in general. And this Dallas jersey is almost the most lack of color that you could get, at least the black one. LA's jerseys are a lack of color, but at least they have some sort of white and gray contrasting. Dallas's arm stripes are hardly noticeable sometimes, and the hem stripe is not noticeable because there is no hem stripe. And the road jersey is a little bit better in this sense because it's mainly green instead of mainly black, but it's still just very plain all around.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were just boring jerseys. Those were awful. All right, Sean, your number 1 worst Reebok Edge jersey. Go ahead.
When considering this jersey to make number 1, I had to think about it as a jersey itself, not as a set. And this is where Dallas escaped my list, because the black jersey, had it been an alternate, we'd all be calling it forgettable, boring, but we wouldn't see it, close to 40 games a year. This jersey we saw 41 games a year from a terrible, terrible team. And that is the Edmonton Oilers 2007-10 road jersey. And I point out specifically the road because the Navy jersey, at least I can see where they were going with it. It's plain, it's boring, but there's color to it. Navy and white is a very plain color scheme without having even a full striping pattern on that jersey. No hem stripe, and what basically amounts to a plain Leafs jersey. This was a jersey that if you did not have a name on it, looked so bare, you'd think it was just a mesh shirt. These things were terrible. I can't comprehend who at Reebok said, don't finish the arm stripe. Don't complete it going around. I don't know who said don't put a yoke on it. I don't know whose decision it was to say let's use the design where we cut the arm off, but let's have it the same color on top. It's an awkward jersey, and it's one that reflected how good the Oilers were at the time.
It was just an awful jersey, and I agree with you. I don't know how it got past the idea stage. All right, TC, interesting choice here for your number one worst Reebok Edge jersey.
My number one worst Reebok Edge jersey was the Phoenix Coyotes 2008 to 2014 black alternate. I hate the full body coyote, the leaping. It just looks weird. I hate that it has two different shoulder patches. The striping, if you can call it that, is just sort of like an amorphous blob thrown onto the jersey. And I think their decision to stick with the single colored numbers was a bad one. I just don't think it looks like something that I would want to be seen in.
I remember when that jersey was coming out, the logos came out before the actual jersey, and the logos were very solid. They actually raised expectations for the jersey. And then when they released the jersey, it was just such a disappointment on that one. All right, Brendan, finish us off here. Your number one worst Reebok Edge jersey.
Now, let me preface this by saying that if I was picking between all Reebok Edge jerseys and doing a top 3 worst list, I don't think this would have made it on there, or it would have been number 3. But I wanted to pick a few different things just so that we weren't all talking about the same exact jerseys. So my number 1 pick, New York Islanders black alternate, but not the one that I think you guys are thinking of. The one from 2015-17, the Brooklyn alternate. Now, again, the lack of color on this one is the big thing that really makes it awful for me. I was watching some footage of it in the game earlier, and good God, did it just look bland. But that's in part because it's almost all black, and it doesn't really have any hem stripes. I would hardly consider that trim a hem stripe. And the arm stripes, while they're thin, and I don't mind the thin stripes in general, if you look at a photo, it's not too bad. But when you see it in movement, they are very hard to see, the arm stripes, and it looks almost like a plain black jersey. And that just really does it for me. Not to mention, even years before Adidas was even announced as the taking over the NHL jerseys, they did a half color.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was warning to Adidas that we were not fans of the collar from the get-go. Those are certainly some terrible Edge jerseys. I would say the Edge jersey era is going to be remembered for starting off horribly, and they did manage to correct a lot of their mistakes, but there were still a lot of terrible designs that did make it through and stuck around for all 10 years. So not necessarily remembered as a great jersey era, but just good in general. That was our Reebok Edge segment. We'd love to hear from you guys as to what your worst Reebok Edge jerseys. Leave some comments both on the blog or on the YouTube page. Get involved in the conversation. Gives us a lot of feedback, and we can engage with you guys. That'd be great. We'll be right back discussing Russia's banishment from the 2018 Winter Olympics. The HJC podcast every Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern on HockeyJerseyConcepts.com. All right, and as I mentioned, we're back talking about Russia not being involved in the 2018 Olympics. Joining me for this segment are Brendan. How's it going?
Good.
And Steve, you're going to jump in on this one. How's it going, Steve?
It is fan-darn-tastic.
All right. So now with Russia not being involved, or not being athletes from Russia not being able to represent their country, they're going to be called Olympic athletes from Russia. Does this make the Nike Russian hockey jersey more desirable to have in your collection, Steve?
Yes, on the fact that it's, I guess you would consider it a jersey foul along the lines, because it was produced, it was to be worn, but then extenuating circumstances happened, so now it's not going to be worn. So I'm assuming they've already sold some, so now the price is just going to drive up, and that's going to happen not right away now, but towards the future. It's going to happen.
Brendan, would you want that jersey in your collection?
Now, once this was announced, I never really thought, ooh, I need a Russia jersey now. But it definitely is going to become a bit of a collector's piece, considering that, again, it has been made, it's been released, it's been sold, as far as I'm aware. It's been sold at retail so far. And now it's never going to take the ice, at least not in these Olympics. If the only way that I think it could take the ice again is if they bring it back for the next Olympics, which, please, for the love of God, no. As much as they might want to try to be like, okay, this was actually worn at some point, it looks so awful that I don't want it to come back, and I hope it's just a collector's item.
Now, what do we think that the Russian athletes are going to wear? What I have at this point, they only have about 2 months to get something together, or maybe they've been planning a backup. But are we just going to see what they released, and then they'll remove any mention of Russia from the jersey? Do you guys think it's going to be a white jersey with Olympic rings on it? Steve, what do you think? What do you think that we're going to get from the Olympic athletes from Russia?
Honestly, it's either going to go one of two ways. They're still going to have the template itself, and they're just going to forego any Russia insignia or anything related to Russia and use either a custom-made logo that represents them, or they're just going to use the Olympic logo, or they're just going to find a generic jersey and throw the Olympic logo on the front of it.
Brendan, what do you think they're going to take the ice in?
I almost do want to say that they are going to take the ice in the same jerseys they already have, except with a different logo on it. That seems like the most logical option, let's put it that way. Or we can take the option that TC had and stick a P in front of Russia and be Team Prussia.
But they got to do it with hockey tape. Like, the trainer's got to step in and tape each jersey. And
yeah, it's like whenever you're playing minor hockey and you forget your jersey and you got to borrow a practice jersey and tape a number on the back of it.
Yeah, exactly. And all of them have to be like that. So if these makeshift jerseys, whatever these Olympic athletes are going to wear, were available for sale, Steve, would that be desirable to you, just in the same way that the turd burger is desirable to some people? Because it's so bad, people need it in their collection.
Personally, no, because what I can see happening is exactly what goes on with the soccer jerseys from the 94 Olympics. Basically, I know we're getting out of our sport, but the Team USA wore denim patterned blue jerseys in the 94 Olympics, and they are so popular that everybody bought them. And now, 20 years later, they're a collector's item. So if you buy one now, it's not going to be a collector's item until probably 20, 30 years down the road. So, but is that a gamble I'm really willing to take when it could just be, we're just going to decide not to go to the Olympics. So, honestly, I wouldn't get it, but it really depends on the decision of the players and what they decide to do.
Brendan, would a Olympic athletes from Russia jersey be of any interest to you in your collection?
I mean, it could be another collector's item, considering that it's likely only going to happen once. But at the same time, it's not going to be like one of those jerseys that are too ugly that it's it's so ugly that it's good, because like the turd burger, because the turd burger at least is surrounded by good jerseys, some mediocre, but it's surrounded by professional jerseys. All of these Olympic jerseys this year are pretty awful. Maybe aside from Sweden. Sweden still is okay. But in terms of it looking so bad that it's good, it's not going to be a collector's item by any means. But it might be a collector's item just because it happened once. I'm not really sure if I'd be interested in it. I guess it would also depend on how the team does. And just if anything special happens, assuming that they do even go, like Steve mentioned.
I'd love to see officials absolutely ignore this issue, not even think about it, because maybe it's something that they overlooked, and then I'd love to see them show up to South Korea, forget that they had to get new jerseys, and then the Olympic officials in South Korea have to scramble and get them together something so they're wearing, Coca-Cola jerseys or something like that. That would be hilarious. So that
bunch of turd burgers that they found on clearance on the NHL website.
Yeah, but they're all small.
Who's Miles?
They're all skin tight and coming up over the elbow pads, and then the Olympic athletes from Russia would blame their losses on the small jerseys. We just couldn't move out there.
Wouldn't you shit if they won the gold medal as the Olympic athletes of Russia?
It's a possibility. It very much is a possibility. Watching them get the gold medal wearing shitty jerseys, and their anthem wouldn't be allowed to be played. So I'm thinking that they should get to choose their own song to be played. They'd probably choose some house music or Katy
Careless Whisper.
Oh, man. All right, I died a little bit there. We'll be right back. That covers the Russian portion of our podcast. We like to get a good portion of Russia into every podcast, and that about covers it there.
We were really rushing through that one.
Oh, we'll be right back with Throwback Throwdown.
Voting is your American right and responsibility. Wait, you're Canadian? Voting is your Canadian right and responsibility. Either way, vote for the concept of the week here at HJC. Every week there's a new vote on the right-hand side of the page in a black box. Just click the concept you wish to vote for and boom, you're all done. Results posted every Saturday at 4:30 with Ryan's weekly recap here at HJC.
Thank you for that, Phil. We always appreciate you dropping in on these podcasts. And it's now time for Throwback Throwdown. We're going to bring in TC and Sean for this segment. And tonight, Saturday night, Vancouver is in Calgary for a big matchup on Hockey Night in Canada. And so, of course, we take inspiration from that for our matchup. And we're pitting the Vancouver 1987 yellow home jersey up against the Calgary Flames 1995 home jersey. We'll take a shot reviewing each jersey quickly, and then we'll pick a winner. And, of course, if I have to break a tie, I will. So, TC, why don't you start us off, your thoughts on that Vancouver jersey?
Vancouver, it's definitely keeps in the theme of the Flying V, but it's a little more understated. The V in the shoulder area, I kind of like it. I think it's non-traditional, and I think that they pulled it off fairly well.
Sean?
It's a very underrated look in Vancouver's wide jersey history. It's just sort of the in-between between the fanatic, chaos that is the Flying V and the just classic 90s Kirk McLean design that everybody knows and loves. It's somewhere in the middle. It's one that I don't think enough people appreciate, and one that I wouldn't mind seeing them thrown back to.
Absolutely. I love the color was so vibrant. The V on the shoulder doubling as a yoke is tremendous. That logo is tremendous. That's what I grew up with. And I'm thinking of Kirk McLean's rookie year and Trevor Linden's rookie year. So I think that's a really solid jersey. If I get my hands on that one, I would. Let's spring ahead to the mid-90s and Calgary getting away from the traditional look and going with almost vertical diagonal stripes on their home jersey. TC, start us off with a Calgary review.
This is another one where they were just trying to go for broke with something I really like the arm striping and the full length yoke. The thing that bothers me the most about the hem stripe, I would have less of a problem with it if it hadn't just started from the bottom, if it had sort of more organically come up from the existing horizontal hem stripe. I think that's what really kills it for me, is the fact that it just randomly juts out of the bottom of the jersey.
Sean, Calgary jersey, I know you're sporting it right now.
I am wearing it right now, and I'm looking at it, and everything TC said is true. There's a really nice striping pattern. It's unique. It's fresh. It's 1995. I have less of a problem with the podium stripe, to be honest with you. It's a unique thing. My main problem with it, actually, and this is something that just has to do with the time, is that this entire jersey is sublimated, and it was at the time. My problem with that is this jersey would benefit tremendously from piping.
Interesting.
If this jersey were to be done today, you could make this yoke look a lot thicker, because you guys can see it, but those of you listening can't. This is a very thin, full arm stripe compared to what we're used to with Reebok Edge and CCM. This is a very, it feels like something that needed to happen for the full armbands of today to come, that this was sort of the growing awkward period. And in that way, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I can't say I'm a fan of that Calgary jersey. I wasn't a fan when it came out. It has not grown on me. I think it's a blemish on their jersey record, and it is just definitely not one of my favorites at all. TC, from this throwback throwdown, who are you picking as your winner?
As my winner, I got to give it to the Spaghetti Skate and the Canucks. I just think it's a different jersey than what Calgary came up with.
Sean, your winner?
I'm completely biased because I'm wearing it. I love this Calgary jersey, and I may have nitpicked it, but this is a jersey that I've always been a fan of. I can't stand the red one, but the white one specifically, I felt was just, it would have made for a beautiful alternate. And it's something that I don't think gets enough appreciation, because Calgary is, when they do good jerseys, they're typically very traditional. And this was Calgary doing a good jersey that was outside that realm of traditional.
All right, so that brings the score to 1-1, and now I feel compelled to break the tie, and I'm going to have to give it to the Vancouver 87 yellow jersey, taking this throwback throwdown by a score of 2-1. And now we will go around the league with quick updates from all of our favorite teams. Very epic theme there that I chose. I love it. All right, I'll start us off with the Maple Leafs. Last time we did this review, they had a Saturday game in Vancouver, which I was thrilled that it started at 4 local time in Vancouver. It did not pay off for the Leafs, though, as they lost that one 2-1. They generated enough offense, but Vancouver had a hot goalie that night, so it didn't play out for them. But this week, they did have a great game, and now I'm blanking on who they played on Wednesday. But, Freddie Anderson was terrific, and they beat the Flames 2-1, 47 saves for Freddie Anderson. And tonight, they're in Pittsburgh to face the Penguins and feel the thrill, and hopefully they come out with a win there. Sean, why don't you give us a Winnipeg update?
Well, last time we checked on Jets, they were on an absolute tear and have since seemed to have fallen back to earth, but have had some bright spots along the way. The 5-0 thrashing of the Senators, I think we can all agree, was not only completely justified, but God's will. The two next games were not so good. A 5-1 loss to Detroit. To be fair, that was a team that had lost 7 in a row and was desperate for a win. This happens a lot. And then a loss 6-4 to Florida. To be fair, Eric Comrie, not used to the NHL at this point. Our next game is not easy, though. Tonight, playing Tampa Bay. Then December 11th, getting a little easier, facing Vancouver at Chicago before this time next week, they'll be playing Chicago.
All right, Brendan, tell us what's going on in Pittsburgh.
Well, since last week, they played Buffalo again. They played Buffalo last Friday as well. They played them again, 5-1 this time. And, of course, it was the Penguins. I don't really think anybody would expect Buffalo there. 2 days off. Played the Rangers and lost by 1 goal. Was that in overtime? I can't remember. TC.
I believe it was.
I think I was busy doing some sort of assignment for school, so I couldn't remember if that one was. No, actually, it must not be overtime because last night. Well, it depends on if you're looking at this and the fact that we're recording this on Friday or that you're listening to this on Saturday. So Thursday night, they beat the Islanders in overtime, 4-3. I was actually there for that game. It was a pretty nice game, but they melted down in the last few minutes and gave up a 3-1 lead. So it definitely could have been overtime against the Rangers because I see right here it says overtime. So overall, decent week. And again, tonight, if we're talking about that you're listening to this on Saturday, they are in Toronto, as Ryan said.
No, Toronto's in Pittsburgh.
Against Toronto. Jesus, I cannot talk right now, can I?
The HJC podcast apologizes for a friend of the show ruining the illusion that this is in fact recorded on Saturday.
We're totally live.
Was that ever actually an illusion?
This is 100% live right now. TC, the Rangers have seemed to have turned it around from the dreary October that was. Why don't you give us an update from the week?
The Rangers have turned it around, but I mean, it was a deep hole that they dug. They're currently 5 points back from first place, only 3 points back from the wild card contention. I think really the problem is that they're in the Metropolitan. If they were in any other division, they'd be in the top 3 or at least battling for the wild card. It's a very consistent race in the 5 top spots of the Met within 3 points of each other, but then it drops off for the Rangers. So I think it's just a combination of the dreary start they had and the fact that they're in such a highly competitive division.
All right, good stuff. That was Around the League. And next up, we're going to play everyone's favorite segment, Fake or Authentic. And this is Fake or Authentic. And this theme music has been chosen by Steve. Steve's been pressuring us to go with this theme music, and it's an excellent choice for Fake or Authentic. All right, in this segment, in case you're not aware, I throw out a statement, and the writers answer with Fake or Authentic, and then, of course, elaborate it on a little bit. So joining us is TC, Sean, and Steve for this segment. And here comes our first statement. The NHL has absolutely no interest in placing a team in Quebec City. TC.
I'm going to go ahead and say authentic. I think that they just don't really see it as a viable market for themselves. And I just think that for some reason it didn't work the first time, so they're not going to try it a second. Could just be Bettman hates French Canadians.
That's certainly a theory. Definitely can't say that for certain. Sean, Fake or Authentic, the NHL, no interest in placing a team in Quebec City.
Authentic to the point where they will never expand in the Eastern Conference until there are 32 teams. The reason being, it is completely and utterly stupid for the league to put another team in the East and then have to balance that out to 34 teams, even though there are markets that could do so. No, the Canadian dollar is low. The only way that there will be a team in Quebec City is if Carolina or Florida relocates. And right now, it seems to be Florida that is the top Eastern Conference contender. And Bettman will never, ever, to his credit, in some respects, and to him being sometimes a dick, he will never show his cards on relocation for the exact reason that Canada has a problem with getting overly excited every time any team gets into financial troubles.
They have a right to, though. They can. We know we can fill a building, and we know we can support a team. And there's other places that refuse to support their teams properly. And as our dollar is not as valuable as the US dollar, and that's the way it's always going to be, but there's still a formula where a Canadian team can be far more successful than a miserable not even Southern, than a miserable American team. Steve, fake or authentic? The NHL, no interest in going to Quebec City.
I'm going to have to go with authentic on this one. And I'm just going to say, it seems like right now they want to hit markets that they haven't hit. Because look at what they've done with Vegas. And then we get the thought of Seattle. And Quebec's over here like, well, what about us? And the NHL is probably saying, well, we've already hit you. We're going to try and go in some new markets, see if we can build it up. Particularly one of my not favorite places, Seattle. But I'd be interested on how that'll go. So, as TC once said, a failed social experiment. But overall, I think that's kind of like their fail-proof plan. That's like their, when all else fails, go to Quebec City.
The way I see it is Florida should relocate there. Florida is having a terrible time trying to get people there, and they're not a good team. They've rarely ever been a good team. So I'm thinking Florida heads there. Even Carolina now with a new majority owner has 7 years of built-in protection in that contract. And we know Bettman always jumps to the rescue of the Arizona Coyotes, so I think that's off the table. Earlier,
and TC, why does he jump to the Arizona Coyotes?
Well, I'll tell you, Steve. It's because Gary Bettman is the Antichrist, and his summer place in hell is very, very easily located next to Phoenix.
All right, all opinion. That's fantastic opinion. Earlier in the show, in the Throwback Throwdown, we were talking about a 90s jersey from Calgary. Fake or authentic, the most successful jersey from all of the 90s alternates was the Penguins gradient jersey. TC, fake or authentic?
I'm going to go ahead and say authentic, just because it's the only ones that really stick on my mind are the gradient jersey, the Turd Burger, the Burger King, and the Wild Wing jersey. And as much as I love the Wild Wing jersey and would have it for the sake of just being able to say it, I think the gradient jersey is the strongest of those. And if we were going on 90s I would 100% say Fisherman. But since it's alternates, I'd say the gradient.
Now, also considering that the Lady Liberty jersey was also a 90s alternate, do you still stick with your answer?
I do stick with my answer. I love the Lady Liberty, but, I'm a sucker for traditional designs, so I'm gonna stick with because I think it's a little more 90s than the Lady Liberty.
Sean, fake or authentic on this one?
100% fake, because there is one jersey that outlasted it, and it never gets the credit it deserves, despite it having what many consider to be a cute logo for a team that is anything but. The Pooh Bear jersey.
Oh, no.
Outlasted every possible other 90s jersey.
Just because it outlasted doesn't mean it's better.
I think it is.
If that was true, then the Senators would have the best goddamn jersey in the NHL. They've stuck with it for so long for being so garbage.
No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that it's the jersey from the 90s that lasted the longest, and it's the one that people who grew up in the 90s and people who grew up when I did in the early 2000s are kind of unified by that one alternate as being the sort of bridge maker with, Lady Liberty as well. And don't get me wrong, I like that gradients, but I have no affection for it. Like, it's a nice jersey, but it's not nostalgic for me. It's a jersey that I remember being, that's what they wore before I remember the Penguins and Sebastian Caron. So, no, fake. I'm giving it to the Pooh Bear jersey. Brian Defoe and Anson Carter all together. TC, this ad hominem attack on my hand movements will do nothing.
I think he's going after your fantastic French accent.
That was it.
Okay, good.
Steve, fake or authentic? Your Penguins and their 90s alternate, which turned into a road jersey.
This is not me being biased, but I'm going to say authentic. And while Sean says that he believes that because the Pooh Bear outlasted it, the Penguins turned their alternate into a full-time jersey. So while they did change, they changed to another jersey. But the Pooh Bear was never relegated to a primary. So also, I have to say that was the first time you really saw any type of gradient to that extent of where it's two different designs, the gradient into each other.
Vancouver did it better.
Well, of course Vancouver did it better, but Vancouver just went straight gradient.
And Vancouver's wasn't necessarily successful. I mean, it was only around for 2-3 seasons.
And it went from red to black. I mean, it's nice, but
Navy.
The Penguins took a black jersey. They took their triangular yoke. They put thin yellow stripes and added silver into their color scheme, which during the 90s, I remember that was like the coolest thing ever to me, my older brother, and my cousin. And just overall, we thought the jerseys were awesome looking on TV. And so it's part nostalgia for me, but at the same time, the fact that they put it as good as to using it full time, I think I would say that was successful out of all of them.
But did it not just exacerbate the problem the Pens already had with non-matching home and roads in a time when if you didn't match at home and road, you were only the Pittsburgh Penguins? It went from a jersey that one of them had a script, one of them had a logo, but the striping is relatively similar, and we now know the designs were chosen in that manner, to a design where you had the RoboPen Classic jersey at home, and then on the road you wear this weird gradient jersey. So you only made that problem worse. Everybody gets on Minnesota's case for not having matching home and road jerseys. Pittsburgh did it first.
Yeah, but Pittsburgh did it better, and it worked. It didn't work for Minnesota.
At the time, it worked pretty well.
That red jersey is horrendous. I hate that jersey.
All right.
The red jersey with the green on it, no. I'm color deficient, and I have trouble telling the difference between where the red starts and the green stops.
Well, let's jump back to the Penguins here. That great debate on 90s alternate jerseys, but sticking with the Penguins and alternate jerseys, fake or authentic, the Penguins will have a yellow alternate jersey next season, similar to their Sunday yellows from the 80s. TC.
I'm going to go ahead and say authentic. I think it would be fantastic to see a yellow version of what they currently wear. I think if they try to pull off anything that looks like their Vegas gold, it's going to be short-sighted. I don't think enough time has passed for the nostalgia to kick in on the Vegas gold. I think people are still think it's going to look ugly. And also the fact that they already have the blueprint for a yellow one. They wore in the 80s a yellow one. So they just have to go back and make that on the Adidas template, and it'll look fantastic.
Sean, fake or authentic on this one?
A fake in the sense that I don't think it's just going to be the Sunday yellow jerseys. I want to see something closer to the Stadium Series jersey. A new, fresh, a yellow jersey, relatively similar, but something fresh, something new, and something that incorporates more Pittsburgh hockey history than just Mario Lemieux. You know, I want to see that very, very, very loose tie into the Pittsburgh Pirates with the City of Champions logo on the arms, which I think was a very nice touch to that jersey. The industrial style numbers, those were all really nice. It'd be nice to see that return. The jersey already is an Adidas template it's an Adidas style collar and all that on a Reebok jersey. Just bring it over.
Steve, fake
Sean,
or authentic?
I believe you meant Lemieux.
What? No,
What?
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 Guys are terrible.
The HJC podcast is now banned in Quebec.
Get it out of here.
First we tell them they're not getting a team. Now we're making fun of their
We're
accent.
making fun. Kick them when they're
We're
down.
making fun
I
of
like
their
poutine.
best
I like
player of
poutine.
all time.
All right, Steve, fake or authentic on this one?
Okay, so this is the thing. the baby pens are already doing this. They're already doing the yellow version on their level, but in the Reebok. So if the Penguins were to do the yellow on the Adidas version, I mean, it would be a nice welcome. And I'm sure everyone would be happy with it, like the Sunday alternates. But I think, honestly, they'd want to go for a different path than that. They just don't want to copy themselves because they've already brought back an original style. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to bring back the Stadium Series jersey because that was widely popular.
I did enjoy that Stadium Series jersey. That one was well done.
They did a really good job of getting rid of the triangle behind the penguin. I never thought that would have worked out well. So
absolutely, and as Sean mentioned, the City of Champions logo was good, and everything about that jersey was really solid, I thought. Here comes our final fake or authentic statement for this week's broadcast. Chrome logos on a Stadium Series game jersey done in the same style as Adidas did the NHL Shield would be offensive to me. TC, fake or authentic?
Authentic. I hate chromed logos. I hated it when they did it in the Stadium Series with Reebok. I'm going to hate it if they do it now. This is not biased by the fact that I'm a Rangers fan, and I think their chrome logo was probably the worst. I really tacky looking, and I just think with hockey, which is a sport steeped in tradition and history, to bring out something that's so gaudy for the sake of looking fresh is just a misstep.
Sean?
Fake, and I agree with TC, and I wouldn't want to see it per se, but I didn't mind when Pittsburgh, Chicago, the Islanders, and the Kings did it the first time. I minded it when the Kings did it the second time, the Sharks did it, the Ducks did it, and when the Devils didn't do it. It's just something that works for some teams and works with some designs and really doesn't work with others. And unless you have a gem, which was that 2014 Pittsburgh Stadium Series jersey, where the chrome logo actually worked to benefit the jersey in some regards, it's something I'd stay the hell away from, but I'd be interested to see it once.
Steve, fake or authentic on this one?
Fake. I'm with TC. I'm more of a traditionalist. And plus, like on a small scale, that little chrome 5 logo, yeah, it's cute, it's nice, it's bringing it into the future. But on a bigger scale, that's not as flexible. So you're going to have issues of movement, and it's going to also weigh down the jersey. So they were always talking to Adidas about having much lighter jerseys and everything. That defeats the purpose. So no, absolutely not. I mean, as maybe a patch for an event, to that as far as an extent as I would go. Even maybe if they wanted to do a font and include it in the font of the numbering, but otherwise the full logo, no.
Well, there you go, everyone. That was this week's fake or authentic. And now, Mailbag. Everyone good to come in on this? TC, Sean, Brendan,
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, good stuff here. We have lots of good questions coming in. I like this one coming in from Noah B. Which Original Six team has the worst identity? Brendan, you want to go first on this one?
Oh boy, that's an interesting one. My mind kind of defaults to Boston, just because I think that their jerseys that they had for Reebok, which barely changed coming into Adidas, just started to look a little bit dated to me, and it's something that I want to see changed. In a way, I also want to say Toronto, not because of their logo. Their logo is absolutely gorgeous, but that inconsistency is still bugging me with the stripes. I'd probably have to say one of those two, I think.
TC?
If I had to go with one, I'd probably say Chicago. I've never been a fan of the mismatched striping. I've never really, I don't mind their away jersey. It's the home where there's no red whatsoever in the striping, and for some reason that's always bothered me.
Sean?
Boston's the odd one out here because I think the other 5 original 6 teams have seldom had a bad identity, and if they do, it's quickly corrected in the case of the Rangers and the Leafs. But Boston's never, like, if you think about it, they're always the untouchable teams, the teams in which you would never redesign. And right now, there are the 5 of the 6 original 6 teams are in that category. Boston is not. Boston hasn't ever had the best looking jerseys in the league, with the exception of maybe in the 80s they looked okay in those Cam Neely style jerseys. But they've never blown me away with an identity. And I've seen so many concepts that would give me an identity that would say, oh, that's great. But we just keep getting the same sort of Bobby Orr looking jerseys, but not really, because if they brought that back, that'd be too much. They don't want to commit to bringing in the classic identity like the Leafs have done, like the Rangers have done way back when, bringing back these classic things. They just keep giving it in small doses and then trying new things that don't really work.
Steve, you want to finish us off on this question?
Honestly, I think Sean has said everything that I thought of Boston. I feel like they have a good identity. Like, they have good ideas. And then all of a sudden they scrap them for a bad one. And they keep the bad one. And then they come back with a nice idea. And then that idea gets dated. And then they go back to another idea. And it's a never-ending rotation of good to bad. So it's not like Chicago or Toronto or New York Rangers or the Montreal Canadiens, where there's seldomly been any readjustments. So,
well, of all the original 6 teams, I mean, they're all fantastic as far as I'm concerned, but they're all steeped in tradition, so that helps. But for me, it would have to be Detroit. I mean, it's average logo, I would say. I know time has given it this aura about it, but the basic jerseys and the logo, I would have to say they have the worst identity, even though they're all quite solid. Going on to another question here. This one comes in from Burka Circus. Which is worse, the Olympic jerseys or the initial Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, Reebok Edge blob jerseys? TC.
Can I pass? Because I literally have no idea what he's referring to.
I think I know what he's going. I'll jump in here.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
By far the Olympic jerseys. I'm sorry, I don't know what you guys are talking. Those Tampa jerseys weren't that bad. They really weren't.
Okay. Because they're black.
I mean, in all fairness, it's basically Pittsburgh and Ottawa's jersey without side panels, but with a tiny little stripe on the cuff.
Yeah, the Tampa jerseys were dated for sure. They became dated very quickly. They had nice logos. Dwayne Rollison played for them, so they can't be all that bad. I like Tampa's jersey. I don't even hate Pittsburgh's that much. Ottawa can suck an egg, but, 2 out of 3 of those really aren't that bad. They were never in the bottom 5 of the league at the time. They're always worse designs. These Olympic jerseys are just shit.
What do I tell Ottawa? You tell them to go suck a lemon. Steve?
Tell them to suck an egg.
Steve, what's worse, the Olympic jerseys this 2018 or the Reebok Edge templates for Pittsburgh, Ottawa, Tampa?
Honestly, the Olympic jerseys, because at least the 3 identities of the NHL teams varied, and they had enough variation to where you could tell that it was a template, but they were different designs. The Olympic jerseys, there's very little differences between each design that you could tell. So it's like literally they just slapped a logo and coloring on every single jersey of the same design. So I'd say Olympics all the way.
Brendan, how about you on this one?
Yeah, I have pretty much the exact same points as Steve does. The Olympic jerseys are worse by far because, kind of like Sean said, in a vacuum, the other jerseys, the Penguins and Senators and Lightning, aren't in a vacuum. They aren't that bad. I mean, they're not great. They're not that good still. But they aren't that bad. The main reason that I think, well, not necessarily, but one of the reasons that I think they get some hate, especially from us, is that they are all almost exactly the same. They have minor differences. Like basically, if you start with the Penguins one, remove one of the bottom side panels and change some of the colors. Then if you remove the other side panel and add a little puck stripe, you get Tampa Bay. They're all almost the same. With the Olympics, they are worse in a vacuum, and they are almost all the same, and there's even more of them.
Yeah, the Winter Olympic jerseys are just absolutely the worst. Death on a jersey is what it's like. I was going to say something inappropriate. Never mind. I almost forgot that other people are listening, and it's not just a group chat here. Brendan,
I don't get it. I don't get why Tampa is included in this.
They're the same. They are the same jersey.
Well, no, they are the same jersey, but one of them was just the jerseys they wore before on a different template. They look very similar with a better logo. Ottawa was a huge downgrade, and it's the Sens. The Pens the problem with it is they won in them. If the Pens hadn't won,
that's not really a problem for me or Steve, but
I think Sean is just feeling personally attacked that we're hating on a black jersey.
It's going to be marching in the streets. Right.
We're attacking on 2 black jerseys, technically.
Yeah, but Ottawa is the exception to everyone's rule. Like
Ottawa's the exception because I grew up in Toronto, and the Sens suck.
Well put, and let's end that topic there. Oh, we got a great question from Brendan here in the mailbag, also known as Beepo, also known as friend of the show. Are draft jerseys a foul? Brendan, why don't you explain this a little more?
Now, whenever I say draft jersey, I mean the jersey that a player is drafted in. So, for example, I was actually kind of thinking about getting one of these after the thought came up. For example, Jake Gensel wears number 59 for the Penguins, and I don't believe he has ever worn the Vegas Gold original Edge set, but he was drafted in 2013. So whenever he was drafted, he received a Vegas Gold jersey with a 13 on it. Would that be a jersey foul?
TC, is that a jersey foul?
Technically, no, because he did wear it, but I think that most people are going to as a jersey foul. So if you don't want to have to explain to every jackass who comes up trying to be like, well, hey, that's not a correct jersey. And then you have to go, well, actually, then he's just going to look like a jackass. You're going to look like a pompous ass, and everyone's going to lose in that situation. So while it's technically not a jersey foul, I wouldn't buy it.
Sean, what do you think about this?
Absolutely not. I think it falls into the same category as when a player is traded over the summer and then all of a sudden the team unveils a new jersey. Think about when Tyler Seguin went to the Stars. They had not, I don't believe they had unveiled the Victory Green at that point. And you got him on the script jersey. I can't blame you. That was what they were wearing at the time. Or Jack Eichel Turd Burgers. He never wore it. But the Buffalo took that jersey and threw it under the rug as fast as possible. And this is the same sort of thing. It happens. Team stores make these things. They don't even particularly sometimes know when the new jerseys are going to drop. It happens. It's not something I would go out of my way to do. But if I saw a Tyler Seguin script Dallas jersey, I know that it's technically not a foul despite him never having worn it. I would go for it. For cheap, obviously. It's a script Dallas jersey.
Steve, thoughts on this jersey foul?
I kind of agree with what TC was saying. So while it is not technically a foul, it's not game used or even game issued. It's for their draft. So the average person is going to say, well, I've never seen him in that. And you're going to say, well, this is what they were drafted in. So you're then going to go on to someone argue with, so, well, if they were drafted in it, that's not really their jersey. And you're going to end up going on a 5-minute tangent, which will probably end up you in the back of a police car, screaming obscenities at the guy.
Now,
so it's a bad situation overall. So if you buy one, it's nice as a collector's item, but not as something you would wear around.
And you do have to be careful because in the case of Jake Gensel, did the Penguins put a Gensel nameplate on the back of the jersey when they drafted him? Because if they didn't,
That's what I was trying to look for. Yeah.
Yeah, if they didn't,
I mean,
then it is a jersey
I
foul.
could assume that they probably did, and they just give them to the players to keep, as a memento. Hey, you got drafted in the NHL. But I haven't actually been able to find a picture or footage of it yet. That's something I do want to look and find. But in the case that they didn't, let's say, and I got Gensel with that, would it be a jersey foul? Yeah, correct. That's what you guys all think.
Beepo's microphone sounds like he's drowning himself right now, so we missed that last
He
point.
sounds like one of those smokers with the.
It sounds like what's his name on South Park?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, Ned.
Ned.
I have come for the hunt. Sorry to anyone who's had a tracheotomy. That really is a terrible.
Yes, we apologize.
All right, that was our most offensive HJC mailbag to date. Thanks for everyone who sent in their questions. You can send in your questions. It doesn't have to be strictly hockey-related questions. Go ahead, ask us for financial advice. We'll give you very terrible, unprofessional financial advice. Same goes for love and friendship. We can throw out some unprofessional advice there. Make sure to leave your questions. There's a form on the side of the page on hockeyjerseyconcepts.com. Leave your question, leave your name, and we might answer it on a future episode of the HJC podcast. That'll nearly wrap it up for us. Steve, why don't you tell us what's going on right now with the Jersey casual shirts?
So I just unloaded 12 designs. That's 2 series worth out of the whole day, and Sean is showing money signs. That's obviously because his one friend ended up buying 22 stickers from me today. So the designs we got here are the Bruins from the 50s. It's a nice yellow jersey. The Sabres New Winter Classic. The Dallas Victory Green jerseys. The 1989 Calgary Red. The Barber Pole Sanders jerseys. The pre-Audi Zero Nashville Predators jerseys, the white ones, the orange Philadelphia Flyers, the current ones they wear, Chicago's red jersey, almost done here, the Desert Scape for the Coyotes, the 90s teal jersey for the Sharks. We have the new Carolina red jerseys with that sublimated hurricane flag, and the Columbus white jersey. So we got a lot.
Definitely a good
Please
roster.
start buying.
A good roster of Jersey casual designs there. So yeah, as Steve said, start buying some shirts. I own a shirt. They're good quality. You can also put them on stickers, phone cases, all sorts of things.
I am wearing my shirt right now.
But are they boat stickers?
You can get boat stickers.
Okay.
As we talked about a couple weeks ago, duvet covers. I mean, you can go all out with these things. So, and we also have the tote bags. Just anything you can think of, you can slap these Jersey casual designs on. We also have the HJC logos stickers for sale. If you're interested in buying any of these items, head over to hockeyjerseyconcepts.com. Near the top of the page, there's a shop tab. Click on that, and you'll see links to buy these items. Also,
Brad has one on his said boat there, so
I do enjoy slapping the stickers on my boat. It helps keep the leaks in order too. Also on the blog, we have the New Jersey Devils redesign going on right now, and those entries are due this coming Friday at noon Eastern time. We're looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with this week. If you want to know when these podcasts go up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, give us a thumbs up. It helps spread the word about HJC and the podcast. Help us spread the word about the podcast. Tell a friend. Tell anyone you know to listen every Saturday, 4:30 to the HJC podcast. We'd also love to hear your comments and feedback, both on the YouTube page and on hockeyjerseyconcepts.com. How are we doing on these podcasts? Are you enjoying them? Join our conversation. And on YouTube, we'd love to hear from you guys there too. So thanks for listening, and thanks for allowing us into your ear holes. Goodbye.